so I can give you some insights. What are the interview basic questions? I had a gate rank, very poor rank, you can say, something around 1284, and I have a JS rank 374. So as you can see, my gate rank was really poor, but don't be upset. With this much gate rank, you can also be called for interview at various IITs, but mostly I have applied through JS only. I've also opted for GATE, so I have seen that many of my friends have got their interview called up to say 1500 rank. They have also called. So let's begin with the interview questions what I have faced in last semester. So let's begin with IIT Madras. Now I am at IIT Madras. So let's the questions I remember most. So I have forgotten many more questions, but still I would recall some of the questions I have faced. So the very first question was asked, what is your interest? I said that I want to do my Ph.D. in experimental condensed matter. So depending on the topic. So the initial question was EK diagram in a semiconductor. So EK diagram in semiconductor. So as you know, this is very simple. Then the immediately second question was 4-prob measurement circuit diagram. So there was a 4-prob measurement. So you must do prepare for some experimental measurement that you have done in your MSc. That is better for experimental condensed matter physics interview. So the third question was how can you distinguish between metal semiconductor and insulator. So I plotted like a rho versus T graph. They will ask experimental apparatus. So any experimental procedure you know for distinguish between metal and semiconductor. So in this area, rho versus T graph, they will ask the low temperature behavior of metal at the low temperature behavior of resistivity at the low temperature. Okay, sorry, so many low temperature I am talking about. Don't fumble. Okay, the fourth question was that was a tricky kind of question, and I was able to answer this. So the question was like a filament bulb they will give you. A bulb, ordinary filament bulb. Okay. Then the question was how can you generate UV source out of this filament bulb. That is, the question was how would you change the power of the setup. Will you increase or decrease to create filament bulb. So you have a bulb, ordinary filament bulb, power. So how will you change the power? Power change procedure. That is will you increase or decrease the power to get the minimum of wavelength in the visible region. Okay, so that was kind of tricky question. Think about those questions. I will discuss many more. So the third question was like this. Let me remove this. Sorry, the fifth question. So the fifth questions was they are asking to plot the Planck's laws of radiation, that is the energy density versus wavelength. So energy density versus lambda plot with different temperature. You know this is a famous plot. And the sixth question was what is luminescence? So what is luminescence? So you study all these things while luminescence, fluorescence is there, phosphorescence is there. I was not able to answer this question because I thought they will also ask from atomic physics the transition from different kind of energy levels, so I was not sure of those. That's why I skipped this question. So another question was like a seventh question, you can say. So say you are talking about band gap in semiconductor. So then they asked, then why do you denote Fermi level in a valence band and conduction band and valence band. So what are these Fermi level in band gap? That is, if there is band gap, no energy level should exist. So is it a energy level or something else? So this was a kind of question. So that's all what I have been asked in IIT Madras interview. So I did not much well, but still somehow I have been got selected, because here they took many more PhD students compared to other institutes. So I can also suggest you some questions regarding IIT Madras interview, what I have experienced from my friends. So another questions like there was you must study the Hall effect experiment in detail. One can say it is a easy kind of experiment, but many more basic questions they will attack from this experiment. And specific heat of solid, so plotting or different temperature of specific heat, and they will ask what is the specific heat that we measure, that is specific at constant pressure or specific at constant volume, and do you talk about specific at constant volume for solid also. See, in many books I have seen that generally at constant pressure or constant volume we talk about gas, but many books like Decker has also used specific at heat at constant volume for solid also. So that is a one kind of convention. So you also must think about that, this kind of questions. So they will ask you from the basic questions only. So they will try to pull you back to the basics, then they will start asking. So that's all regarding IIT Madras. So we can move what are the institutes I have opted for interview. So the second interview, this is not in order, I gave at SINP. Here also basic questions was there, like after basic introduction they started asking me about what are my favorite topics. Then I proposed classical mechanics. Then they given a pendulum with spring contact, and they asked to calculate me the normal mode and frequency of vibration. So that's all. Then they asked again EK diagram. Then they asked about rho versus T for metal, and this has consumed a lot of time. So they wanted to know what is the behavior of this rho at low temperature. So you have to explain why this non-zero value at even absolute zero temperature exists. You have to discuss this also. So one more question was like I forgot some of the question, but still I am recovering. Oh, so one more question was like if you have a simple cubic crystal and if you have a non-cubic crystal, so in which case I will be able to get the more number of excited peaks. So you need to think about the crystal symmetry. So as you know, simple cubic will give more symmetry, so less number of peaks will appear for a simple cubic. So these are the questions I can remember. Okay, so we can go for another institution. So third interview was at NISER. In NISER there will be a written test, some basics MSc stuff starting from your BSc level to MSc level, and some higher graded question will also be there. You can also follow the YK LIM books. So you do not need to answer all those questions, but make sure that you cover at least 40% of the question and you can correct thoroughly. Then you will be shortlisted for the interview. So in the interview, like they started from the classical mechanics. So they say there is a pendulum and we have a charged particle. Then this so these are oppositely charged. Then this pendulum will move to this position. Then what are the angles, the tension in the wire, they have provided the mass, the basic stuff they have asked. Then they again move to metal versus semiconductor. So all the same kind of question I was facing. So what are the difference between rho versus T gap in these two kind of material? Then they ask specific heat of solids. So in specific heat of solids, they ask what is the Debye correction and Einstein correction was all of that stuff was also there. So again specific heat. Then they ask what is a dy frequency. So dy frequency, you also must know the physical significance of this. Okay, then they started moving towards quantum mechanics. So the only question they have asked from quantum mechanics was the free particle. So 0 to L, they have followed me the whole solution they asked. Then they told that you shift the free origin of this box to, that is minus L to plus L. Then they asked what will be the change in wave function, if there is any change then show the change in wave function. Then they asked me to plot the ground state wave function psi 0, psi 1. Okay, so that's all. So you must also keep in mind when we need a sinusoidal solution and when we need a plane progressive wave solution in free particle. So that kind of stuff they have asked. So that's all from the NISER interview, and frankly speaking it didn't go well for me. I was stuck with basic things. So 3 institutions we have covered so far. Okay. So another institution was, so the next interview was at IISc. So with this much poor ranks, gate rank and JEST only, have applied to JEST only. So they have only called for CENS, that is Center for Nanoscience, and second was SSCU, that is Solid State and Structural Chemistry Unit. So these 2 departments only have called in for interview. So the first interview I faced at IISc was at CENS. So in CENS, after the typical introduction, then they asked about me what is the difference between semiconductor, metal and insulator depending on the band theory. Then they asked me to plot E versus K diagram. So in all of the department, like if you are from condensed matter, they will ask this EK diagram. So I recommend to also go through the conic penny model and free electron model and Sommerfeld free electron theory. You must go through all these also. So if you have a good knowledge, or if you have studied QTL really well, then this kind of interview will be really fruitful for you. So E versus K diagram was there. Then they asked that in semiconductor we say that there is a band gap between the conduction band and valence band, and for silicon, say like the band gap is order of 1.16 electron volt. And if you know that at room temperature we have energy in order of, say at 300 Kelvin, that is 25 milli electron volt. They then say that all the semiconductor devices at room temperature is also conducting, that is electron are overcoming this gap and jumping to this conduction band. So how this room temperature energy is sufficient to provide this much of energy, that is 1.16 electron volt. So you must answer this question from density of states. So you must start thinking how can you useful density of states, and then you will be able to find answer for this question. Then they asked me from a graph was there, like exponential of sin x. Say only they have plotted, asked to plot me this graph, and I have drawn it terribly wrong. So that is the reason maybe I was not further selected for CENS. So only this 3 or 4 question was there. So I have also forget some of the question, but these are the main question was there. They are focused. So there are a lot of taking time in answering the questions because they were giving you hints. So try to take a less hints and you answer the question, that will be more helpful for you. So at SSCU what happens, they asked me from where should we start. Then I said basic quantum mechanics. Then I asked for free particle problem. So in free particle, so I plotted like 0 to L, V is infinite at 2 boundary. Then they asked me to derive solution for the wave function and the energy level. So I found psi, then energy level, then they also calculated delta E. Then they plotted what are the energy levels, how will you plot, and how this delta E will depend upon principal quantum number n. So these are all the questions they have asked from the quantum mechanics. Then they started towards little bit condensed matter physics. So asked from the basic practical perspective, like they asked me to plot intensity versus 2 theta for XRD pattern. So they asked me. Then they asked, how can you distinguish from this plot the basic crystal structure like simple cubic or non-cubic system. So basically there was a Debye method called. You must go through drill from that method. So these are the 3 main questions only they have asked. That interview also not much time, and that was also not well for me. So the last interview I faced at IISc. So at IISc, if you have Inspire or NET JRF, then you have a higher probability to get selected in this. Obviously you must do well in the interview, but with GATE and JST rank, IISc is almost impossible. That's why that's what I feel about IISc, because last year only one student got selected through JST only, but most of they are from NET JRF. Okay, so let's start. What are the questions at IISc I have been asked? So at IISc they ask, look at the current supply board, that is there are current power supply, different kind of boards are there, different sizes plugs are there. They were asking, how can you predict that this board has higher ampere current, this has a lower ampere current. That is the basic stuff. And they were asking, if I connect a high power consuming equipment to a low power supply, what will happen? That is the basic question they have asked. So that is from experimental background. You can say basic knowledge that you can see. Then they asked me a question from classical mechanics. They say you have a 2 charged bulb hanging same and equally charged, they have same mass. Obviously they will be separated by some angle and then they will face some equilibrium. So then they ask, if you dip this whole system in the water, then what will be the separation? So they ask how this separation will change if you dip this in water. Okay, so you must be careful. You also keep in mind the buoyancy force when calculating this. So you must draw the free body diagram. So then you will be able to answer this. Then the question was like, how can you convert AC signal to DC? That is, they have asked a bridge rectifier or a full wave, half wave rectifier. You can also answer. I opted for the bridge wave rectifier and draw the circuit. Then they were asking, I put a symbol like in transformer, these 2 lines. They were asking what these 2 lines indicate. So you must also study this. This is very simple. So I am not going through the answer. I am only discussing the question because the video will be very large. So I hope after all this you have got some idea what are the interview questions basically asked in a condensed matter experiment. So if you are really hoping to go to condensed matter experimental field, then you must study the basic quantum mechanics and solid state physics from Kittel and some practical things that you have done in your MSc, and related to those all the vivas have you faced, the question you can come through. So they will start to ask from the basics only. So clear your basics, then you are good to go at the interview. So one thing I will suggest, that if you are smart enough, like you don't have much knowledge but you are trying to catch the intention of the interview to your comfort zone. So if you can do that, then you win the game at that stage. Okay. So don't panic, just be confident at the interview and only say what are the things you know. If you don't know any answer, just strictly say that as I don't know, but don't take too much time. That don't pretending like I can able to tell this answer. So don't like that. So just be straight and be confident, then you can crack all those interviews. So apart from all those interviews, I have only selected at SINP and IIT Madras. So you can see too many failures are there. So I also learned from my mistakes. So you should also be careful. So don't panic. If you have higher gate rank, let's say 1500, you can also call various IITs will call you, because they will conduct initial exam. After that they will shortlist us for the interview. So if you have bad rank, that is above 1000, please apply for Dhariya's IIT. That all I can say. So thank you. I hope you guys have some help from this video. In future I will be uploading part 2 of this if possible, so stay tuned for that, and obviously subscribe to my channel for more interview related or physics related videos I will upload in future. So thank you.